Worlds of meaning. Reflect on the world of meaning in which we live, in which all people really carry out their lives, and ask yourself, what is meaning for you? You want food, or you wish to get promoted at work, to see someone this evening. All this is meaning, different meanings in the world of meaning. So the question then becomes, whether this meaning is tangible or visible. Meaning cannot be touched by our organs of sense or seen by the eye, heard or smelt and tasted. For example, money has meaning to everyone. But is the meaning of money touchable or seeable? It is surely not an object of any of our senses. As an object of the senses it can take many forms. Paper, silver, gold, crypto, scrip, stocks, bonds, or simply credit. But the meaning remains the same, quite apart from any visible form. It is important to point this out as people take an object and its meaning as identical. Meaning is not the same as the perceived object or an object of the senses, as noted in this particular external world of things we are wired into by our sense mechanisms, the variety and diversity demonstrated by ever-recurrent programming. Notice how meaning waxes and wanes. An object does not alter, however its meaning alters. You get sick of a thing, and then later think it is not so bad and return to it. All this happens in the world of meaning, not in the external world of our senses. We can grasp that when it is pointed out that we live really in a physical world, and then in an invisible world, and we are really invisible to one another. If you observe in yourself these changes of meaning, then you may come to the conclusion that a visible object and its meaning are different things. Once a person can separate things for themselves, what might be termed meaning from object, that person begins to understand this work. The work is not about external objects or things as they seem, but about meaning and what gives you meaning with regard to them, or things as they are. We all live in a world of meaning and are deeply disturbed by this world of meaning. How so? How much of our instability is due to some wrong connection of meaning and has nothing whatsoever to do with an external object, let's say a person? Unless we begin to understand that every external object is a question of the meaning projected into it, unless we see what is meant, it is a futile task indeed which lies before us. The object and the meaning of it are for us two very different things. Things are only that which they would appear to be. This is the first separation, the revival of former meaning, or the deliberate bringing into a present moment of other meaning. Apart from any meaning the event has for us mechanically, right here, right now. This constitutes one of the fundamental ideas of this work on its practical side, which is effort meaning and not the external event. Efforts are not external things, like taking long walks, going to the gym or giving up smoking, etc. Work effort is inner effort with regard to oneself, the way we take life and its ever-changing events. Work effort is all about our relation to all life events. A person is an event. If you are a function of life events, then you are mechanical. What does that mean? If things go well, then we feel elated. If things go badly, we feel gloomy, depressed or even negative, and so on, but we are transforming nothing. When it is said in this work that it represents psychological transformation, it means just that. It's how we look at things, not the thing in and of itself, it's what meanings we attach to them. So what is psychotransformism then? It means we can transform psychologically the way we take things. Regrettably, most of us feel that this work should transform external situations for us, the things and events in our lives, which is of course not possible. We cannot change life. However, the meaning of any external situation can be, for us, transformed. We can be very misaligned in the world of meaning, only we do not notice it. The meanings that we live by may be very poorly formed, inadequate, menial and very mean. Psychological transformation is changing the meaning of those things, of events, of situations for ourselves. It is about taking things in a new way and changing their meaning, for us. Here all the first efforts of real work on self lie. Consider for a moment what mental effort means. This work starts from our mind, not from the body. It speaks of changing minds. We are not at first asked to change any physical habits, but ways of looking at everything, such as the way we take our own life, of thinking of ourselves, our ways of taking other people, our thoughts about them, and so on. It starts, as does the esoteric teaching of the Gospels, from repentance, from changing our mind, literally, going beyond your nous or mind. This means changing our meanings for things and people, and so much more besides that. It means changing our meanings for life. Everybody lives in a narrow set of meanings that contract gradually and then crystallize. This work is new meanings. Meaning is a fitful, fleeting thing. A person, for instance, always trying to put across some picture, some imaginary meaning of themselves, gradually becoming more and more aggravating. Things have their place and time, yet regrettably we rarely see this. Things have their place and time in oneself without their being uttered in speech or in outer behavior to others. In this regard we have to realize what may be possible internally, inside of ourselves, to catch real and new meaning for a time and not later on, maybe even years later. Remember from previous discussion that the Enneagram turns. Its different points of meaning and force are turning. What we see today may not be possible tomorrow, or even a second later. However, it will return. That is the point, that things do come back. All psychological development consists of seeing new meaning, in finer, less coarse or gross meaning. What develops our level of being is meaning, ascending Jacob's ladder through effort, by work on self, and beginning to catch new meaning. If we do not, then there is something wrong in our valuation of things. We can speak here only of those of us who are as yet uncrystallized in habitual views and personal esteem. Meaning is certainly the best way to think about this work at first. The ideas of work are to conduct and transmit new meaning to ourselves, like tuning into a new radio station, finding some new blog or website, like leaven that transforms what it acts upon. This work is self-transformation. However, if we simply remain such as we are, not attempting to change our way of taking life, expecting that the work is going to add something to the level of being that we occupy at present, then a fundamental error of judgment and valuation is being made. This omission runs through every misleading form of esoteric teaching. Consider briefly here the matter of impulse. We constantly start off on impulse, and in a special sense, we start often from the impulse of new meaning, as meaning always gives force, some kind of momentum. So when we have seen new meaning for ourselves, we wish in some excited way either to shout it from the rooftops, or to implement it immediately through permanent action. Of course this is impossible. In the first place, a trace of new meaning entering some dark and sedentary lifestyle is not strong enough to affect anything. Then secondly, even if it did, the Enneagram turns, and we may have to wait a while to remember again. Habit is a constant and monotonous repetition of the same thing, which can be thought of as the consequence of not noticing what follows on, as to do so would require an increased sensitivity to this work. This work can jumpstart the conscious Enneagram in us. One thing should as it were be noticed, and then lead on to something else, and then eventually, though everything returns again, we find that it is not quite on the same level as before, which demonstrates the action of a spiral, and ascending the staircase, breaking a circle and climbing our way gradually out of a cycle of monotonous repetition. Which means receiving a shock. To try to remain at one fixed point that is formed through habit is wrong. Gurdjieff would often point out that, the trouble is, everything becomes mechanical. This refers to a circle of habits and habitual meanings, the mechanical enneagram, or an enneagram without conscious shocks. It refers to a person that has no self-consciousness, no power of seeing themselves and externally considering another person, because they are stuck and everything else moves on past them.